One of the biggest stories of the pandemic is largely been hidden from the mainstream media. So the general public probably has no real idea about what is happening with regards to Anthony Fauci's diary and the analysis of it. Today I'm talking about the spike protein warning that was made by Robert Gallo, who was the original discoverer of HIV HTLV. And it was one of the things that was caught in this diary, and it highlights just how significant some of these things are. And what we're seeing now more than ever is the fact that if you don't look for the truth, you are unlikely to find it. Because when we look, just did this just a few minutes ago. I typed in Anthony Fauci, and I then pick up out of Google News what are the top stories. You can see here asking him for medical advice and then calling for him to be jailed. It sounds like a typical story. Solid legal ground in face of prosecution. You see nothing about the diary. Disillusionment about crazy Trump rant in journal. That's the first time you see it. That was on the 27th of July. And so you can see here that this diary is not really highlighted. You're not seeing much of it. And it's because it is so significant. It is a major, in a sense, embarrassment to what you could call mainstream scientific community because he was so significant. Now, what I'm focusing on now is another section, and this is the reality is that we need to focus on this for months. There is so much information. It's over 1,000 pages of information that needs to be gone through quite significantly and sequentially. And one of the things that was picked up, this is on X. I thought this was very significant. So let's look at this here. This is taken from an email that was sent to Francis Collins at the NIH. And in it, Robert Gallo, this was Sunday, the 3rd of May, 2020 at 12:07 p.m. He says, on a final digression, Francis, I've had 36 years of on and off experiences with glycosylated spike proteins, their analysis immunologically, and especially regarding use in vaccines and developing neutralizing antibodies. And this is making reference to the fact that when you have a viral infection, if you're triggering immunity, you want it to produce antibodies that actually stop the virus from infecting, neutralizing antibodies, not just antibodies. So continuing along, I believe it would be a mistake to put most eggs in that basket. Now, he's thinking what a lot of scientific people were thinking at the time. Hold on, you're going for a spike focused response. You're putting all your eggs in one basket. And the risks are shortened antibody half-life. That's risk one. Now, this has been perfectly highlighted, which is why people need boosters in some cases, they were up to 2 months. Every 2 months, people would need a booster in order to keep their antibody levels elevated. My reading into that was that it's likely to be highlighting that the immune system does not like the spike protein. It considers it more like a toxin rather than just an antigen. And so it literally tries to shut down the immune response. So he was perfectly on target with regards to observing or being concerned about that. So that was one, the shortened antibody half-life. This was definitely happening still. Two, protection not correlating with neutralizing antibodies. Now, wow, he clearly was a genius at this because this is exactly what happened where people were vaccinated and they were using Israel as the test ground. And what they were finding was that within about 6 months, and even in some of the autopsies, deaths with people who are vaccinated, within a short period of time, you were finding that they need to be boosted. And when I looked at an autopsy research paper in 2022, looking at the fact that you had viral dissemination in vaccinated cohorts, some of the patients had antibody levels over 2,500. In a normal infection, it's about 280 to 300. They were having antibody levels over 2,500 and they still died of COVID. And so this fit perfectly with what he was saying, not correlating with neutralizing antibodies. And then three, sometimes hazards from them. Now, you don't have to be a genius here to realize that this is relevant in terms of what is going on. Sometimes hazards from them. This is exactly where we are today. And it's important to get into context who this person is in terms of who Gallo is, with what he was doing. And he was one of the lead people with regards to HIV. And what he had come up with is an interesting idea to use the oral polio vaccine to prevent COVID. And at this time, he was talking with Eureka, and this was in August of 2020. He's a virologist, long career in academic and government research, distinguished professor in medicine, co-founder of the Institute of Human Virology, University School of Maryland and Medicine, and co-founder of International Scientific Advisor of the Global Virus Network. So this is a very experienced researcher. Most people know him as the co-discoverer of HIV. So when you're talking about top-level scientists, this was one of them. And him being objective in his scientific analysis picked up on the fact that, listen, you're taking some big risks here. Why are you putting all of your eggs in one basket? And what he had been suggesting at that time was that he was saying, you know what, you don't have a vaccine yet. Why don't you stimulate innate immunity? And so he was recommending using the oral polio vaccine. And what he was thinking is that if you used a normal vaccine, literally just stimulate the immune system. So why do you think the oral polio vaccine is a good strategy? He said, arguably the most successful vaccinologist in history, Hillman used to say that when you're making a vaccine, start with feasibility, ease of distribution, availability, and safety. They had 70 years with oral polio vaccine, tremendously safe. Complications are largely zero in the vaccinated population. We can easily produce it, and there's plenty of evidence to suggest it. And what he was saying is that if you stimulated innate immunity, what you would then get is an immune system through the production of interferons. This would interfere with viral replication. Now, hindsight is 2020, but I'm telling you that this guy hit it on the button, even with regards to what he was saying about innate immunity. Without an understanding of what happens with severe COVID and SARS-CoV-2, a lot of people don't realize that the reason the majority of people had severe disease was because they had a delayed interferon response, meaning that the virus infected them, went into their lungs, spread in the bloodstream before they then had a late, strong interferon response. This is what triggered severe disease, leading to a cytokine storm. So his principle of triggering the immune system to produce interferon in a short period of time would absolutely have made sense. Not only that, it would have trained mucosal immunity in the intestine. Very few people realize that technically, we're doing a paper on this. Severe COVID was an intestinal disease. bounce back from the lungs to the intestines, back to the lungs, which is what caused the severe clotting and so on. Not in all cases, but in a significant proportion of the cytokine storm. And we're going to demonstrate why in a paper that we're working on. But this is what I mean, is that he clearly saw what was extremely important, and he warned them at that time with regards to the implications of not having more eggs in the basket. And when you look carefully at what he said towards the end here, when he was talking about it, he then says here, admittedly, they might work, but I trust and hope that not everything is going in this bag. If you wish to discuss this again, I will be available. So this guy was giving them the warning that, listen, do not put all your eggs in one basket, which is exactly what they did. Now, there were some challenges with the oral polio vaccine in the United States because they didn't use it, and so it would have been challenging to bring it in. But across the world, they could have used it because many other countries use it. And the impact and the protection that you could have had from just giving oral polio vaccine, yes, there were some small risks of reactivation of polio in some situations, but broadly across the population, that could have been one of the most genius ideas and most practical ideas that was never followed through. And he highlighted the point, do not put all the eggs in one basket. A spike-based vaccine approach. Almost every single platform used the spike protein. And here is an important point. And there's a reason why I was flagging caution from 2020. And it's because I saw the autoimmune question. And at the time, it was a question. We were just simply saying, we know that the spike protein binds to ACE2 to get into a cell. That's how it infects the cell. There are a cohort of people who have certain comorbidities, if they're obese, if they have heart disease, kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, they have elevated levels of free-floating ACE2. So our question was quite simple. If those people get infected and the spike protein binds to the ACE2, will it trigger this kind of autoimmune cytokine storm? And this is exactly what seems to have happened. And the reality is that when we look at where we are now, our simple follow-up question was, if you make a spike protein that replicates the viral spike protein, is it also potentially going to bind to ACE2 and other normal proteins and trigger an autoimmune response? All of the evidence is indicating that autoimmunity is surging across the world, and we don't seem to have any ideas. So what we had here, this was the evidence that there were the warnings. He pointed it out. Shortened antibody half-life, exactly what happened. Protection not correlating with neutralizing antibodies, exactly what is happening. Sometimes hazards from them, exactly what is happening. I won't even bother to take on the fact that we knew there would be challenges with spike-based vaccines from SARS-CoV in 2012. Every single platform triggered immune pathology in the lungs on reinfection. That's the bit that people forget. They think that it's just simply about whether or not someone was vaccinated and they got side effects. No, the critical bit that the evidence showed from 2012, it was on re-exposure. When there was reinfection that you had the abnormal immune pathology. We still don't know because nobody is publishing autopsies. We're still where we are. I've been calling for this for 4.5 years. They're either not done, I don't know if I can't believe that, or they have been done and not published. That's where we are now. And so the responsibility that we all have to do, because there's a lot of documentation, We all need to start reading these diaries and finding things like this. This is what Jessica Rose highlighted. I thought this was exactly on target because Robert Gallo exactly predicted in May of 2020 what was likely to happen. And even he, a leading expert with HIV and viral diseases, was not listened to. What can we say? There's very little chance they would ever listen to me, but the outcomes are still likely to happen. As a final reminder, please remember, if you want to support us in our work, we have a free chapter available on the NO secrets, nitric oxide. And this here is something that will help anyone who has exposure to SARS-CoV-2. It not only protects your blood vessels, it also protects your nasal pathways. And so this is something that is of tremendous value. Support us in this journey, and we look forward to bringing you more information in the near future. Have a great evening.